Melissa, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time and you being here. So you've been on council 6 years?
6 years, yes. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about why you're seeking the mayor's seat now.
Sure.
Why this office? Why this time?
So this office, because I have worked really hard in District 6. I really love representing my hometown. I mean, this is the area where I grew up, and I feel very much like my service to my city is my love letter back. The office is really me looking at kind of scaling up my service. District 6 is a microcosm of our city. We have everything in District 6 that's in the rest of the city, from Edgewood to Alamo Ranch. You can't get more diverse. And so looking at what I've done in my district, and I have been very successful in my district making change, and in some ways making things go faster, in some ways slowing things down for our residents and really what they're looking for me to do. And I feel like I've given city government back to the residents of District 6. So I'm running for mayor because I want people to look back in 10 years and say, Melissa gave San Antonio city government back to the people of San Antonio. And that's what I've done for my district. That's what I want to do for my city. The timing is now, obviously, because there's an availability. There's an open seat. And I just feel like it's my time. It's time for me to step up, step out, and again, show that love for my community that did so much for me.
Should you be elected, what would be the top number one issue for you?
Yeah, I think it has to be. It's really hard because there's so much that's so important. I would have to say right now that we have to make sure that our unhoused are housed. It's an issue that's everywhere in our city, every corner of our city, and there's so many options for solutions that we haven't focused on. We had this incredible housing bond, and it's a good start, but we really need to push for that, and we have to focus our budget dollars, our bond dollars, our even public-private partnerships to make sure that the unhoused are taken care of. It reaches public safety, it reaches, of course, affordable housing, it reaches transportation in a lot of ways. It reaches every aspect of our city government. And if we could somehow figure out how to get people taken care of, housed, and not just housed, but I say taken care of because there are so many issues why people are unhoused, and help those underlying issues as well. I think that also leads into our economic segregation in our city, right? The issue of poverty, and we are the 7th largest city in the country. I think we're about to pass up Philly, and talking about the poverty, how we're kind of part of San Antonio is moving forward, and part of San Antonio is always staying where it is. I think that talking about the unhoused is a big part of that, and. I'll say I believe that the number one way out of poverty is education. In my family, I have a very San Antonio story. My mom went to Fox Tech High School. My father went to Lanier, very inner city. But my dad joined the military during the Vietnam era, and he got a set of skills. He learned communication skills, came back to San Antonio and had a 30-year career on what was then Southwestern Bell, now AT&T. And, which is kind of unheard of now, right? Have a 30-year career anywhere. But that set of skills, that education he received was the trajectory, my family's trajectory out of poverty. None of my grandparents graduated from high school. My parents graduated high school. I'm the first in my family to graduate from college, but also my JD, I have a doctorate in 2 generations. And it was just that education he received in the military. So that's the trajectory out of poverty. Going back to housing, right? There are families that trajectories they're staying at that level, and making sure that we're taking care of our unhoused, because they have, we're all related in some way, right? We're all this organism together. I think is going to help us to move out of our trajectory of some of our families' trajectory out of poverty.
When you run for council, you often recount the story. I think it involves your grandfather.
Yes,
about the sidewalks, right?
Yeah.
The lack of sidewalks
Yeah.
in District 6
Yes.
at that time in
Yeah.
your childhood, right?
Yeah.
So has that...
we have the lowest number of sidewalk
Right.
gaps now. I'm really proud of that.
Okay.
I did what I said I was going to do.
Has that broader dynamic shifted at all, do you think?
No. So that story is I say it's the spark. It's that spark that was lit in me as a little kid, and it is what has propelled me every day in my life, not just on council, not just public service, but my life as a disability attorney, right? That's really what led me to run for council, led me to become an attorney. I'll recant the story really quickly for anybody watching, but I think about 8 years old, and I was walking in my grandfather's neighborhood with him. My grandfather was not a formally educated man. He was a carpenter, painter, mostly spoke Spanish, but we were walking in his neighborhood, and I remember kicking at the grass, and I looked up at him and said, why don't you have sidewalks in your neighborhood? And he looked down at me and said, ¿Por qué no les importamos? They don't care about us. And as a little kid, I didn't really understand what was happening, but I knew that I was pissed because my grandfather was like this pillar in my life, a really great man. And who doesn't care about you? Like, how can you not be taken seriously? As I grew and understood more, and I grew up in a family that he was our patriarch, right? And he made me understand a little better that city government is not for people like us. We are, and I'm going to, people of color are the majority in this city. And we always talk about bringing a chair to the table, right? Bring that chair to the table and you speak up and make your voice known at their table. I maintain it's not their table, it's our table. We have to bring people to our table in this city. And that's really where that's grown for me over the 6 years as being a city council person, is kind of shifting that mentality from go to them and ask for their permission and get your voice heard, as to you guys should be coming to us, right? We're a minority majority city. Not just that, but women and all kind of marginalized people. And I'll say, there's people that are not of color that are living in poverty. Them too, right? It's our table that we should have the powers that be. Maria Berriozabal, 17 people that run the city. They should be coming to our table. We have the real power in numbers. So going back to my grandfather's influence and that spark that was lit in me that day, that's a fire, and that fire has just grown and grown and grown, especially over the last 6 years. I'm born and raised in this city. I feel, you think you know every corner of this city, and then you represent your city and you realize, wow, there's a whole lot that I've learned in this last 6 years. So, but it has not quelled the fire, it has only grown it. So that is definitely what still propels me forward.
Just a couple questions about city programs. Do you think the Ready to Work program should continue?
Well, it's going to continue, right? I mean, it's a voter-approved project. We're going to get funding through 2026, and that funding will still continue for years after. I think it should not continue in the exact way that it's continuing now. I've really pushed to try to expand the barriers that were really kind of self-imposed on Ready to Work. I want to include children that are, or people that are under 18. So we have a lot of city programming for, this is a second chance program, right? It's supposed to be, you kind of go out into the world, you get beat down a little bit, doesn't work out, some things happen, but now you get a second chance with Ready to Work, and that's great, and we should be doing that. However, I maintain that we should look at programming for children that are in high school so that they can not have to go get beat down, right? Let's give them that chance right out of high school. There are certain programs that we can incorporate into our school system that will allow them to earn $70,000 right out of high school, like cybersecurity programs. And cybersecurity is the way, cyber innovation is the way of the future, I think. And we're already seeing it in our city with UTSA, and there's grants at St. Mary's. And that's just one example of how if we could lower the age to under 18, we can include a whole other set of people. And I'm going back to, that's how we get out of poverty, is education. And get people out, or young people out of high school with the certifications, get a good job, and they don't need to come back and have that second chance. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, right? That's what Ready to Work is workforce development to help propel our city out of poverty. And so I've introduced it, and there's all kind of, no, that's not what we're supposed to be doing. It's only over 18. And I keep saying, like, what are we supposed to be doing? Let's look at the goal and what we sold to the voters, right? And what was sold to the voters. And nowhere does it say it has to be over 18. Nowhere does it say it can't include this other programming. So I know that a lot of people are getting CDLs, and that's all fantastic, although now we're having, issues with all of that, with the federal government. let's be creative. It's time to innovate. It's time to push forward. And there are times when I feel like on council, I'm really grateful. I have good relationships with every council member. But if they don't see that vision, if they're not willing to take the risk, it's kind of harder to get things done. You're sitting in the mayor's seat, you have that influence, and you're able to kind of be more, you're able to take those risks for the community. And I don't think they're risks. I think they're chances, they're opportunities that we're not taking.
So you'd expand it to youth, like teens,
yeah,
but not in the capacity of summer jobs.
No, yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah, summer jobs. I also want to try to figure out how to professionalize childcare. We have a pretty significant childcare gap in our city, and qualified childcare. And I've heard a lot from childcare providers that they have trouble finding the labor. So professionalizing that, including that in ready to work. But I don't see why not summer jobs. I mean, we want, if it's education, if it's training, and it's going to serve them in the future. I mean, my summer jobs as a kid, I was a waitress, right? I mean, that taught me a lot about a lot of things, right? Mostly how to put myself out there and talk to people. So summer jobs are very valuable. It's all skill set. It's any soft skills, job skills, life skills that we can teach folks, not just young people, any folks, right? To get them a better job and help them escape poverty, then I'm all for it. But we have to be willing to do it, right? We have to be creative. We have to adjust. We have to shift. We have to look at ready to work in a different way. And it's frustrating to see that people are like, nope, this is one pot and this is what we're doing, and it's not working. We need to be creative. We need to adjust.
Would you support continuing pre-K for us then?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's long been proven. Thankfully, the voters agree. But that's going back to education. It's the way that we're going to be successful as a city. So absolutely, yeah. And I want to say too, I don't know that pre-K can take all the credit for it, but my kids grew up in public schools, and there wasn't pre-K for them at the time because we didn't qualify for different reasons. But now they're starting to really open up pre-K. The public schools are starting to open up pre-K for more students. And so I think that there's been kind of an understanding and a renaissance, and I think pre-K for SA has somewhat inspired that. So yeah, I do absolutely think we should continue it, but I do think that there's a lot more options now for folks, so that's good. Mm-hmm.
We've asked this question to the rest of the candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Your colleagues have submitted a CCR advocating for a crisis nursery.
Yeah.
And there's already been progress this year.
Yeah.
To actually see that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you support?
Yes.
What do you see as that vision?
Yeah, so I'll tell you that this is something that kind of came about from the community, which is great, and we should be responsive, and I'm thankful that the council has been responsive. Absolutely, it's a need, and we talk about young people, their education, but the first thing we have to worry about is their safety. So when you have something happening disruptive in the home and a child has nowhere to go, I'm a big proponent of children that are in foster care. I'm a big advocate for them. I'll talk about specifically what I look for in a minute, but the foster care system is it's tumultuous, right? Like it's not as stable as we'd like it to be for children that are coming from tumultuous homes. So absolutely, I think it's an important factor. It's almost kind of a no-brainer, and I'm glad that community brought it to council, and thankful to the colleagues that pushed it forward, because you put him in even a relative's home that is also not stable. The child is kind of just being traumatized over and over and over, right? So having put them in a safe place, this crisis center, even if it's for the night, a couple nights, where they feel safe and they're being cared for. And frankly, there's some the work being done, right? Even if it's just one night, letting that child talk. I mean, have some services provided, even if it's a short period of time. We just never know how that's going to change, that child's life and give them some sort of stability. Even in some cases, some children don't even know that the world that they're growing up in, if it's abusive, they don't even know it's wrong. So going to a different place, a crisis nursery for a night, for 2 nights, and not being told that things in their lives are wrong, but just seeing another option, that there are other ways to do things, that could change their mindset, that could change their lives. So it's a possibility, so I think it's important. Yeah. Yeah. I'll talk about my foster care. Yeah. I get really excited about this because I came into office in 2019, and actually I ran in 2017, and I lost that race. And I learned way more about losing than I ever did winning. But I mainly learned so much about my city on the campaign trail. Those next 2 years, I still was kind of out. Like my eyes had been opened up, so I was out kind of really understanding my city better. And foster care kept coming to me. It's not something I had a background in, I didn't have experience in, but the sort of, the topic kept coming back up and from different places in the city, from different people. And I was like, you know what, somebody's trying to tell me something here. So I leaned into it and really learned more about it. And I started focusing, once I was elected, on children specifically that are aging out of the foster care system. A lot of them are just left to their own devices. They're left on the street with a trash bag full of whatever they have, which isn't a lot. So it's a pipeline to incarceration, to homelessness, to trafficking a lot of times. And so about 150 kids age out of the system in San Antonio every year, which that's totally manageable. We should be able to help 150 kids, right? But we really haven't. They're in the foster care system. And I find that when I'm talking to folks about this, it really transcends political boundaries, right? If you feel like you're very, very progressive or very, very conservative, people just sort of get this because a child is in that situation through to no fault of their own. And so we should be able to help them. So what we did is when we got ARPA dollars, the mayor allocated different amounts of money to different committees, and I chair our public safety committee. And so every dollar of that public safety ARPA dollars went to mental health. So because mental health is public safety, and also it's a one-time infusion. So we helped the Autism Network to get out of their 18-month waiting list. We helped $7 million of children that are aging out of the foster care system by giving to nonprofits that house them. Giving them that housing, giving them that stability. People will say, well, they have all kind of free stuff. When you spend one day in foster care, you get free state education, this. But if they don't have a place to live, they don't have food to eat, they're not looking to go to school right away, right? So I'm really proud of that because we'd never spent a penny on children, municipal dollars on children aging out of foster care system, and it's the largest municipal investment for foster kids in the state. Now that was a one-time infusion, so my plan forward is to make it a line item in the budget. Again, we're talking about 150 kids, or so, right? We can help those kids. So I'm just really proud that I was able to lead that the council moved forward with it, and it's been a really well received in the community, and it's making a difference. So I'm grateful.
Let's talk about the responsibilities that the mayor has as an automatic ex officio member of SAWS and CPS. So, you step into that position, you buy that responsibility. So let's start with SAWS.
Sure.
How well do you think, not enough, just right, too much, is the city and SAWS doing to protect the quality of the water? Not necessarily just the quantity, but the quality of the water. And specifically, what is your take on what's happening with the Guadalupe Ranch development, and that discharge permit is, been contested, and it wants to discharge into Helotes Creek, which goes, geologists tell us, goes straight through the karst aquifer to karst formations into our aquifer, even though it's not technically the recharge zone, it might as well be. So you take those two things, Guadalupe Ranch specifically, water quality safeguarding generally.
So to answer the question, we're never going to be doing enough for that. I mean, we have the big responsibility we have as city leaders is to protect our community, right? That means public safety, that means water quality, that means their power, right? When we all experience the winter storm. So I don't think that the city is doing enough. I don't think SAWS is doing enough. I don't think the Edwards Aquifer Authority is doing enough, or SARA. All of them are doing good work, and we're all moving in the right direction, but I don't think we're ever doing enough to protect our water. It's an ongoing you don't get to just sort of check that box. Okay, protected the water, right? We have to always keep moving forward, and as things change, we're always going to be striving to be better. Not a criticism of any of those organizations. Again, I think everybody's doing the right thing and moving in the right direction, but it's not enough. The concern about that is that you have, what may as well be a discharge into the aquifer, and that's going to affect us all. It's going to affect our health. It's going to affect, our quality of life, and it's not. It's one of those things that San Antonians should take for granted. I'm safe. I have water. I have power. And I think the last thing that people think about, honestly, is water, because they know when the power doesn't turn on, right? They know when they don't feel safe, right? But they don't necessarily know that their water quality is good or bad. It's not something you see kind of every day. I happen to, when you go somewhere else and you think the water tastes really bad, I think ours tastes amazing, and I think we do all, we do everything we can to make it safe, but you don't necessarily know because you live here, and you don't know that difference day to day. So I think we should work more closely with the Edwards Aquifer Authority, with the state, with any entity that has, with those counties, where the recharge zone is, and just outside it, like you said. To make sure that water quality is safe. And also bring it more to the public, bring it more to front of mind for our community, right? Help them understand this is where our water quality is. In the city, we have dashboards for everything. We have a dashboard for, everything. I mean, whatever you want to look for, go look at cosa.gov and it's there, but not water quality. I mean, why isn't that more public? CPS has to be very public, and again, I think that was a big consequence of the winter storm, and something I really pushed for was communication plan. I don't know that we have a communication plan for water quality, and the city should be the forefront of that. It shouldn't be all these other agencies that I mentioned, because we work closely with all of them. They're partners. But when anybody thinks of SAWS or the Edwards Aquifer Authority, they call the city. Everybody thinks it's just the city. So we should be that front-facing organization and bring that to the forefront. Now, I think we've moved a lot of policies forward as far as making sure that our water quality is high and it's safe. But again, we always should. It's continuous improvement, I think.
Okay, and what about with respect to Guadalupe Ranch?
Well, yeah. Okay, so they're wanting to discharge into what's near the Edwards Aquifer Authority. The Edwards Recharge Zone. Working with them to understand why, helping them to understand why we can't have that. I mean, we just have to protect that water, and I think we have to do whatever we can to help protect that water source. So I'm not really sure their argument for why they want to do it, but I think we have to push back. I mean, we have to fight. And I come from a place of collaboration. Let's go to them and figure out why, and have them not agree not to, but probably not so feasible here, but probably having just end up fighting it and bringing that issue again to the forefront to our community. Mm-hmm.
With respect to CPS, we wanted to ask you, so, each year CPS, or at least in recent years, CPS has generated excess revenue because it has excess capacity, so it sells
Mm-hmm.
after it takes care of its customers, it sells on the Texas grid, and has generated millions in excess revenue,
Mm-hmm.
and then that creates the question typically at the end of fiscal years, what do we do with that
Mm-hmm.
money?
Mm-hmm.
And it typically comes down to three things: goes to general fund, goes to a rebate, goes back to CPS to invest in infrastructure. What do you think is the best use of those types of excess revenues?
So I want to just back up just a little bit. I think what's really important, and what the mayor does is very involved in, is the appointment of the board. So making sure that we have people on both CPS and SAWS boards that are really understanding the community and they're responding to community. So when I hear where do we spend our dollars, where does CPS spend our dollars, that has to be community-led, community-driven. So the appointments of the board are crucial. They have to be responsive to community. And honestly, I mean, we've talked about this, but I introduced a charter amendment that they would be elected, that they would be, that power was sort of removed from the mayor's office, and more democratically opened up to more democratically. There's state laws, and there's all kind of different reasons why, but I still think that's something we should look at. Maybe not elected because of the state law, but some kind of democratic process to get the right people in on the boards. Not that there are bad people on now, but just making sure that that's, as we move, as we change as a city, that we're always responsive to community. So going back to the question, CPS, for at least 2 or 3 years, right, we had this surplus. And you all remember I introduced a plan at the time to, the CPS gives the city, because the city owns CPS, they give city 14% of their revenue. That's our deal, right, because we own them. I proposed a couple of years ago, let's give 2% back to CPS to mitigate rate increases, because that's what I was hearing from community. They wanted to know that they wouldn't have to keep paying more for power. And then after the winter storm, when it was unstable, that people were not feeling really great about paying more for power that they felt was unstable. So what ended it was, I guess, about a year of negotiation and compromise, and people just blew up like, oh my God, she's crazy. Why would she say that? Why would we give 2% back? I got so much pushback from the city itself. I really had to fight the city itself, and that's my job as a representative. I don't represent the city. I represent right now 150,000 people that stand behind me in District 6. And I was hearing very clear, not just in 6, but outside, I don't want a rate increase. I mean, that's pretty commonly known. So giving that 2% back was a step towards mitigating that rate increase. So we ended up, after back and forth negotiation, getting council members on board, getting the mayor on board. What's happening now is when there is a surplus, we give a percentage back to CPS. I'm really thankful to say that it did mitigate a rate increase. This last amount of money that we gave them back, because we've had such hot summers and they're getting that windfall, as it were. And CPS said recently they're not going to ask us for a rate increase. Does that mean forever? No, probably not. But right now, they're not asking for a rate increase. And right now is important given the economy that we're dealing with and the price of eggs and all that, right? So yeah, I mean, I think that's at the time it was seen as kind of like this crazy idea, but it ended up working out. And they call it crazy, I call it bold, I call it innovative, but it worked. So I think that's the kind of innovation that we need going forward.
You voted for the rebate?
Yes, yeah, to give back the rebate.
The $28 one.
Yeah, so that's part of why. So the year before that, we had this influx. And, at the time I said, it's like having all this cash on the table and all these council members I want it for this in my district, that in my district. And I mean, that's important. We want to be able to have everything that we need, the infrastructures in our district, but it didn't seem to be going anywhere. So I wanted to focus the dollars. At the time, the option was to divvy it all up between the districts. It's like everybody gets $5 and nobody gets anything, right? Or we give it back to the community. And community was upset because if there was a rate increase, it would be, by $5 a month or a couple of dollars a month, and they were upset about that. But then they got $30 back a month, which again, not a lot, but in some households it was. And it was more than that. It was giving it back to the people, right? So that happened the year before, and that's what got my wheels turning. Like we should have a policy for this. Our summers are not getting cooler, right? It'll end up adjusting, sure, but for a while we'll have some windfalls. Let's have a policy for what we do with these dollars. Let's not just all, it shouldn't be kind of one-offs here and there. It shouldn't be just rebates, the $30 rebates. It shouldn't be just, I get this extra sidewalk in my neighborhood. It should be more comprehensive. And I'm really, that's what inspired the policy change that I introduced and ended up, delaying a rate increase. Which could mean, long term, even if you look at it compounded, right? Even if they ask for a rate increase in 2 years, it's not compounding on a rate increase now. So it ends up more dollars in your pocket as a San Antonian.
How did you vote on, I just can't remember. How did
Sure.
you vote on the
Let's see if I remember.
The city manager's pay?
I did not vote for the city manager's
You
pay.
voted against it.
I voted against it. I was the only one that voted against it.
Okay.
And I advocated against council raises too.
So, okay. Just focus on the city manager.
Okay.
In light of that vote, if you're elected, what's your working relationship like with
Great.
Eric and because obviously the city manager and the mayor are
Tight.
hand in glove, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they're very close, and I don't mean this city manager and this mayor. I mean every city manager and the mayor should be. They should be close. I think that's a really important working relationship. I had some issues with the city attorney, but we're besties, right? Like we work every day together. I have no issue calling people out, them calling me out. Let's have that uncomfortable relationship, because remember, it's not about like my personal relationship with this person or that person. It's all our work together for the community of San Antonio, for the people of San Antonio. So that's why I voted against his pay raise. It's $100,000 a year. Let me tell you, he works hard. He's the first vehicle there in the morning. He's the last vehicle there at night. I take nothing away from him, but $100,000 a raise in this economy, and asking our community, those are tax dollars, asking our community to pay for that was just unconscionable, and I couldn't do it. And I talked to him before, and I talked to him after about it. He came in and thanked the council members. Thank you for my pay raise. And I was like, what about me, Eric? And we sort of laughed, and we hugged, and that's just business. It's just the business of the city, and it's advocacy more than anything for my community. So going forward, Eric is again a great city manager. I think he's really collaborative as much as he can be. He's the CEO of the city, and the mayor is the chair of the board, right? So you have to work closely. I have no concern about going forward, working with him, with the city attorney, with any future city manager. I worked for a former mayor years ago, and he famously fired a city manager in the middle of the night, right? And both before and after that, I personally worked well with the old city manager and the new city manager. So it's the business of the city, but it's always in advocacy for San Antonians.
Was there, it just makes me curious, was there a number that you felt would have been acceptable and reasonable?
No, I thought there should be no pay raise. Not now. Yeah, and same for council. I didn't think we should have pay raises. I knew what I signed up for when I ran for office. I wasn't expecting to make money. I mean, you do this out of love for San Antonio. So asking for a pay raise now was just, it was unconscionable. Now the voters saw fit to do it. Hey, that's up to the voter, and that's, thank you to the voter, right? But it doesn't apply to me because I'm currently in office, and that was the other thing I made very clear. If this is voted in, it should not apply to the current council. If God willing I'm your mayor, then it will. But the voters saw fit to do it. But I did not think that we should even ask them for that when they're having trouble, getting gas and buying eggs and buying groceries. But that's how I still feel about it.
Let's talk about the arena.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's the arena, obviously, and then there's Project Marvel. So let's just first focus on the arena. Do you, just in the general sense, do you think the city has a role in providing some funding to a Spurs arena?
No.
$0.
Zero public dollars.
$0 public dollars from the city.
Yeah. TERS is different. TERS is a different story. That's not, I don't consider those, because it's a tax increment finance zone. That zone pays for it.
But those are still public.
Well, okay, good point. I mean, maybe, general public. General public. Those are not general public dollars. Right.
Nothing from the general fund.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, the city has a role in funding a Major League Sports arena so long as it's tapping sources that come from the
I want to be clear. The question you're asking me is about the arena. We're not talking about the arena. We're not talking about any public dollars for the arena. We're talking about infrastructure around it, the land bridge, all that stuff. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No.
Is there any, because you just said like TERS.
Because the TERS funding would go towards the infrastructure and all that, not the arena.
Oh, not the arena.
Not the arena, exactly. So the answer to your question about the arena is $0.
Of any sort.
Right. Zero public dollars. Yeah.
Okay.
Now looking at the infrastructure around it, development on the east side, all of that, yes, but not the arena itself.
How seriously do you take the concern then that without a new arena, the Spurs would leave?
I take it seriously, absolutely. And I'm a huge Spurs fan. I'm on record as being my favorite Spurs is Sohan, right? Sorry, Wemby, but I love the Spurs. I think they were formed in 1973. And I was born in 1974. I've never not known the Spurs, right? And they, for most of that, have been champions. I love, and I'm not even a big sports person, but I love the Spurs. But at the end of the day, my job is to represent my community. Again, going back to advocacy for the people that I represent. Right now, I'm hearing very clear from most of the community, they don't want to lose the Spurs, but they don't want to pay for an arena either. And again, in this economy, it's very difficult to ask them for that. Now, the Marvel is different. Marvel is the infrastructure, is the development of downtown. Every dollar we spend downtown is economically benefits the entire city. And we have a whole bunch of stats on that, right? So I do believe in development of our downtown. I believe that it will benefit the entire city. The arena itself is just a different story. I do take that threat seriously. They may go to Austin. I'm sure Austin is chomping at the bit. And the last thing I want to do is lose the Spurs to Austin. But I have to advocate for my community and what they're asking and what they want more than anything.
So Marvel, I just want to make sure I've got this clear. So no city dollars for a Spurs arena, but you're open to city funds on the broader project Marvel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which would be the convention center,
right.
Alamo Dome upgrades.
Yeah, I think they eliminated the Alamo Dome upgrades for now because it was too much, but all of it was too much. But convention center upgrades, absolutely. That's conventions are a big part of our economy, so we have to take care of that. Parks, green space, parking is, always a nightmare downtown. So there's a lot of that's in those plans. And people talk about all the pretty pictures and they're trying to sell us with these pretty pictures. I'm not paying attention to the pictures. It's utility of what it'll bring to our city. And again, the economic benefit.
Do you view the bridge as part of?
Yeah. That's the most exciting part of it to me because it literally bridges downtown to the east side. And we've talked a lot about the east side and the unfulfilled promises of the Frost Center, and fulfilling those promises now. I have kind of a firsthand knowledge of that. Before I was around, they built Nelson Wolff Stadium, the ball field in my district, right near Edgewood, and there were all kind of promises made back then. We're going to economically develop the Edgewood area. It's going to be all of this great economic boost. There's a couple of restaurants around the ball field, but there's not that big. That promise was not fulfilled. So baseball comes to me and says, hey, we were going to sell to this different organization. And, we all saw it coming. They wanted to move downtown. I was like, absolutely not. I do not want to lose baseball. And then I was like, you know what? Go ahead. Get out. That's 42 acres of city-owned land that we can fulfill those promises. That's city-owned land. The hardest part about development is the land acquisition, right? We already have it. Let's fulfill those promises. Let's make that a multi-use area. That area needs a senior center. We want a community center. I built a park next door at the Darner facility. We have a big 50-something acre regional park that's there. Let's give them what they promised them years ago. So it's less about baseball and more about what I can do for the community with those 42 acres. And Edgewood is thirsty for that development, and that's the real opportunity. So that's kind of how I see the east side. Let's fill those promises. If and when the Spurs leave, let's take that area and really boost it. And we have a different mindset now than we had however many years ago, 20, 30 years ago, than they did when they made those promises, those unfulfilled promises. We being, I think, this council, I think this community.
Just this issue came up, I can't remember when, maybe definitely in the last year.
Yeah.
Should the city provide funding either directly or indirectly for women to travel out of state for abortions?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Yes, so we are, our city is an oasis in a way, right, in the state of Texas. And I think it's predominantly our city wants to include and wants to help and wants people to be healthy. So when we have the state and the federal government coming at us, cutting funding and not allowing people to have reproductive health care, we as a city should step in and represent our people. I know that there's been some pushback. I know you guys did an ed board. I think you went against it, said that it wasn't a good idea. But and I can understand the argument about the dollars, but at the end of the day, it's my job to take care of my community. And if the state is not going to do it, or they're going to go against the community, or the federal government's not going to do it, then it's my job. You're never going to hear me say it's not my job. I'm going to take care of San Antonio how I know how. Now, people get upset because abortion is not an easy subject. But what you'll see people saying is that I don't want to fund irresponsible kids. They shouldn't be irresponsible. They shouldn't be engaging in and sexual activity. But I'll tell you that I have a very close friend who had a miscarriage, and her doctor would not expel the fetus for a week and a half because she was afraid of getting arrested. That, my friend could have died from that. That's sepsis. Women have died in Texas from that exact circumstance, and she's not allowed to get that health care. So take that circumstance right there. And why shouldn't the city be taking care of her when the state will not take care of her, when the federal government will not take care of her? It's our job. Now that's my friend, but that's happening all over the city. You have women with health conditions that for whatever reason their pregnancies are not viable, and they cannot get that care here. There are people that just can't afford to travel. $100,000 is a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but in the city budget, it's not, proportionally it's not a lot. It's helping people to stay alive, to get health care, and I think that, again, I'm never gonna say it's not my job. It is my job to help my community, and that's why I feel strongly about it.
Another issue that's come up recently, maybe this refrain probably comes more from like D10, but something to the effect of the city should be working proactively with the Trump administration on immigration. Do you agree with that statement?
No.
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 You want to talk about
I don't agree with the Trump administration on immigration, and I don't think that that administration is protecting San Antonio. We have people living in fear right now. We have 200 students that did not go back to Edgewood ISD because they're afraid of getting deported, or they're afraid of going home to parents that are no longer there because they're deported. Working with him, how? Are we going to convince him that he shouldn't be, issuing these executive orders? Absolutely not. If there was a chance that we could, hey, can you work with us here? I don't see that happening. And I think at the end of the day, am I going to, roll over for somebody who is, has a higher authority than me? Or am I going to fight for my community? We're seeing it all the time. The first thing I did when I learned about the executive order was go online and help people to understand their rights. You don't even have to open the door, right? You have a right not to open the door, because it was happening. And it was happening in Austin, and we saw a young man got deported because his stepmom opened the door and he got deported, right? There are stories of it happening here that, I don't know that to be true, but I don't know how it's not happening here when it's happening all around us, right? We're not that much of an oasis. So I don't think that we should work with the administration insofar as they will help us, but they are not helping us. They're exactly hurting us. They're doing exactly the opposite and hurting us.
You mentioned that you're on the Public Safety Committee, so
Yeah.
let's just talk about public safety spending.
Sure.
Previously, we've had sort of, an informal policy about 2/3 of the general fund would be, no more than 2/3 of the general fund.
Yeah,
would be committed,
66%.
Right, so do you support that 2/3 threshold? And
Yeah, and at
Why
this
or why
point,
not?
it's kind of moot because there's a state law saying we can't lower the police funding. And we're not at 66% though. We're at 61, 62.
I think
Now,
it's helpful though to get a sense of your philosophy.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. But I want to be clear, are you talking about public safety, like police and fire, or
Police
just
and
police?
fire.
Okay,
And
so,
And
I didn't
police
hear
and
that
fire
part.
and EMT.
EMS, absolutely, EMTs. So I feel really strongly that our public safety officers, police, fire, I'll even count ACS, right? They're officers, and a lot of the front-facing public safety jobs, that they should have the tools and equipment that they need to do their jobs, right? They should have the staffing they need to do their jobs, right? And that comes from the city budget, but eventually that, of course, benefits us all. We want them doing their jobs well and right means that we're being taken care of as a community. So I do believe that we should spend at least the 60%, the 2/3 or so on what is, as I mentioned earlier, our number one job is to keep our community safe. That public safety officers are a big part of that. Now, what we do with those dollars is that's where I think you can be creative, right? Making sure we have enough police officers. We're growing exponentially in our city. Just keeping up proportionally is difficult. So making sure we're well staffed, our police and fire. making sure that they have what they need. You know, I fought to have a fair firefighter contract, and I'm really grateful that we did that. We had to really push our way around, but it got done. We got a fair contract for our firefighters. Again, the equipment that they need, but also being creative, right? I mentioned earlier that the $26 million of ARPA dollars that went to public safety, which I chair, every dollar of that went to mental health. Mental health is public safety. We have this SA core team that we started under my leadership at the at chair of public safety, where if you have your loved one or neighbor or somebody you know is having a mental health episode, you call and you can request this team and they come out, and it's not sort of a gun and a badge at the door, because that can be scary to somebody dealing with a mental health episode. So it's more a different team with social work skills and trained in de-escalation and trained in finding services for that individual, not just for that instance, but ongoing mental health services. That's public safety. That's 66% of our budget. So I do believe that we should spend that much money on it, but we also can be creative about how we're spending those dollars on public safety.
Who do you think was the most effective San Antonio mayor?
Ever? I'm gonna say Hardberger. Is that what everybody's saying? I'm curious.
No,
It's all over the garbage.
It's mixed.
I'll tell you why, though, because he brought a different sensibility, I think, to the city, because of his legal background, because of his coming from collaboration. He was a mayor who did not take his job as I'm the only one, I'm the leader, everybody follow me, right? It was a very collaborative, and I worked for Mayor Ed Garza. Mayor Garza was very collaborative. That's how I learned mayors are supposed to be, right? So this is obviously my perspective. I do think that a mayor should fight and should push and should advocate, but bring your council with you, bring the community with you, go to the community first. And I think that's what Hardberger did well. I think Mayor I should have said Garza because he's gonna be mad at me, but Garza was the same way, Ed was the same way, very collaborative, worked with the community, worked with the council, and Ed actually in a way was very visionary. I mean, he was the first person that said, hey, what's going on the south side, right? And he really was pushing forward. Back then he had an idea to consolidate all the ISDs, and nobody liked that idea, but people are talking about that now, right? He was, I think, maybe ahead of his time in a way. And Hardberger was, I think that it's the collaboration that I appreciated. That he brought in, and it wasn't. I mean, yes, we have to fight, but you don't always have you don't have to come in guns blazing, right? I'm a fighter, but I don't do that, because I want to. I do it when I have to. Most of the time, it's bringing everybody in. Let's talk. Let's have communication with community, with your council, and then everybody moves forward. It doesn't mean that you do it fast, but it means you do it right. So at the end of the day, I said Ed Garza and Hardberger for the record. I'm just kidding.
Let's see. I'm going to ask you just two more questions
Sure.
that I have, if that's all right with folks. One is, I forgot about this question with some of the candidates, but
Okay.
So roaming dogs,
Yeah.
are you satisfied with the progress the city's making, and
No.
what policies do you want to change?
I think that I talked about this with unhoused, right? When we feel like there's an issue that just has to be solved, we have to focus on it, and that means focusing our dollars, focusing our funding. A couple budgets ago, we really started focusing on animal care service. We have a new, and we've made a lot of progress. I mean, having animal care service happens to be in my district. It's in District 6, and I'm thankful for that because I feel like I have very close access. But we just talked about a new facility on the more inner west side. We should be looking at a facility on the east side. That should be more. It's like police stations, right? We should have. I do believe that it's public safety as well. And I say I believe it. I think most of the community thinks it now. Unfortunately, we've had so many occasions of people being hurt by. And you made a good point. They're roaming dogs. They're not necessarily stray dogs. They are owned by people that are not taking care of their dogs and our community. So having these kind of satellites, almost like different substations for ACS, I think that's important. I have always said I believe that the true key to controlling the issue is education and spay and neuter. So having spay and neuter facilities that are free or low cost, that is key. The community that that really needs it are the areas that are more impoverished, and they have animals for companionship or whatever reason. We all do, whatever reason you have an animal, but they don't necessarily understand why. Their little, sweet Chihuahua, little Pancho goes running around the neighborhood, and he's no threat, he's fine. But you get 10 of those together, and it's not just the big dogs, right? They pack together, and they can be pretty dangerous. And Pancho can cause some damage, right, with his buddies. So it's that's important to help people understand. Like, yes, your dog is very sweet with you, even if it's your pit bull or your Doberman or whatever, it's very sweet with you, but not necessarily out when you have them out running around. We even have programs, say you have a fenced-in area, your dog gets out because your fence is broken, but you can't afford to fix your fence. The city has funds for that. Increasing that, making sure we're educating the community as much as we can about how dangerous it can be for your dog to running around the city. Not just for our community, but for your dog as well, right? Spay and neuter. We just have a pervasive problem with spay and neutered animals, and they are procreating, and it's exponential. There's all kind of data on that, and it's a real issue in our city. You go some places north, and you don't see roaming and stray dogs. And I ask questions, why don't you? Because they have a really comprehensive spay and neuter program. So that's where we should be focusing our dollars. Now we have a new ACS director, and I'm hoping and praying. I'm hoping that he can do what we need him to do. But I'll say that I wasn't really happy about that process. It is up to the city manager to hire him, but I offered input. I sent a memo. This is what I want to see, and I got chastised. Hey, you don't get to do that. Yeah, I do. I'm a member of this board. I get to tell the CEO what I want to see in a new ACS director. Do I get to hire him? Do I get to be part of the process? No, that's your job, and I'm not allowed to do that as a board member. But I can tell you what my community is asking for. So I don't know that I necessarily saw all of that, but he's there now, and we are. I think that should have been a more public process. But I think that we have to have real metrics on spay and neuter, on education, on our director. That's a tough job, man. The last former directors, they get death threats. People we love our animals, right? But some people take it a little far and are threatening ACS officers. I want to be very clear that our city employees are the backbone of our community, and they should never endure a death threat or anything like that just by doing their jobs. They're doing everything they can. And I've been on ride-alongs with our ACS officers, and there's a lot of love and compassion for the animals, for the owners. But they're dangerous jobs. I was more scared on a ride along with ACS than I've ever been with police officers, and I was on a drug bus with police officers, because they're running around after what might be dangerous dogs. You have people in their homes that don't want, hey, I don't want you in my yard. It's pretty scary. So I got to give them, props. But focusing our budget dollars is where we're going to really make an impact. Making sure our policies are sound, looking at what are other cities doing, and how are they taking care of their stray and roaming dog issue. I'm saying dog, but it's the majority of the problem, right? Not so much, we have a lot of stray other animals that are causing issues, but they have found solutions. Now they're smaller municipalities, maybe they have more dollars, sure, but we can scale and we can figure that out.
Just one last question, and you're the only candidate that I've asked this to, but you're the only candidate who's really been outspoken about this topic, so that's why. It's rail between San Antonio and Austin. So is that feasible? What, if you're elected mayor, what are the steps you foresee in trying to make that a reality?
I think it can be feasible. There's a saying, right? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The best time is today. The second best time is today. And I think that's what we're doing. They did try to plant this tree 20 years ago, and it didn't go as planned. There's a lot of criticism of it. County Judge Brown in Travis County, Judge Sakai here, and I have formed this coalition to start talking about that, like what went wrong. And we brought in the people that were, the dirty word Lone Star Rail, right? We brought people in that were involved in that because we want to know where it went wrong. We want to know what they would have done differently or better. But I absolutely think that we're being irresponsible leaders if we're not looking at mass transit between San Antonio and Austin. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be fast rail, right? Like if it's commuter rail, so we stop in between, you stop in the different municipalities along the way. And we brought those partnerships in as well to have them talk to us about what they want to see. because I do think we're at the pain point. I think as a city, maybe we're not, but if you don't travel back and forth to Austin all the time, maybe you don't see the need. But if you're somebody that needs to go there for business, for school, I think it opens up a world of opportunity for us. You have students in San Antonio that maybe get into UT or Texas State, but they can't afford to live there, so they don't go there. And we have great, educational institutions here as well, but maybe they don't get that opportunity that they were looking for because they can't afford it. If they can go back and forth on rail, there's a student pass, that opens up a world of opportunity for them. That opens up different educational opportunities. It opens up job opportunities. A lot of Austinites are moving to San Antonio because they can't afford to live in their hometown anymore. So they're commuting, right? And that could be for us too. Maybe we want to stay in San Antonio because of course we do, but maybe you have a job in Austin or San Marcos or somewhere along that corridor. We should offer you that opportunity. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to be, funding is a huge issue. I've looked at a private partnership between, there's a private partnership opportunity that happened in Florida. It's a rail it's called Brightline, between Orlando and Miami, and that's working really well. There's differences there, right? We don't have the rail. We've talked about elevated rail over 35, so it's not. You don't have to worry about land acquisition. There's all kind of creative opportunities. I do think it's feasible. Do I think it's going to happen the next 5 years? Absolutely not. But we can plant that seed and grow that tree, and it's only going to get worse. We're not. I think it was Kyle. I think was like the fastest growing community there for a while. Who'd have thunk that, right? But I get it. I mean, people want to live in this area, and they may not be able to afford living in Austin. They may not be able to leave San Antonio for other reasons, and we should offer that opportunity. I think it just would kind of really open up so much opportunity for us. Transportation is so exciting to me. It's like everybody thinks that's that's the most unsexy issue, but transportation is opportunity to education, to healthcare, to work. I mean, just so much. And so looking at rail, I think, is really important.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.